Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this very important hearing. I hope the Senate gets the message. Despite fear-mongering from my Democrat colleagues, and I think there was a great example about hospitals being forced to close, tremendous fear-mongering, congressional Republicans are focused on rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse in programs like Medicaid and SNAP, ensuring they remain solvent for those who need them the most, which is the disabled, the elderly, pregnant women, and children. These programs should serve the truly vulnerable and not able-bodied adults who can work but don't or simply won't. Medicaid and SNAP make up over 10% of the federal budget, more than $700 billion annually, yet improper payments are rampant. Medicaid alone saw $31 billion in improper payments last year and over $500 billion over the past decade, enough to insure 6.3 million Americans, according to the Economic Policy Innovation Center. Additionally, Obamacare expanded Medicaid far beyond its original mission by covering able-bodied working-age adults. Worse, states are incentivized to prioritize this able-bodied group, receiving $9 in federal funds for every $1 that the states spend, while the truly vulnerable receive just a $1.33 match compared to what the state spends for $1 that they spend. That's not just misguided. I think that's truly immoral between the two. The American people elected President Trump to restore trust in government and stop the runaway fraud and waste draining taxpayer dollars and threatening these safety net programs. I'm encouraged that House Republicans' One Big Beautiful Bill begins to address these issues by strengthening enrollment checks, discouraging the enrollment of illegal aliens, and instituting work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents. However, the bill doesn't fix the broken match rate formula that prioritizes able-bodied over the most vulnerable. And I urge the Senate to address this huge disparity and return Medicaid to its original purpose, and that is protecting the most vulnerable. Dr. Blaze, blue states like California now allow illegal aliens to access Medicaid. How does this expansion and the prioritization of illegal aliens over U.S. citizens crowd out access for core populations like the disabled, elderly, pregnant women, and children? And do you believe this has led to any preventable deaths among these groups?
Yeah, thanks for that question. You know, it really gets to the heart of what the incentives are that face states. And like you said, they have massive incentives to expand the program for able-bodied working-age adults. The scheme that California employed was this managed care tax, where the state took the money from the managed care plans, spent it right back on the managed care plans. That was the money laundering mechanism. They then leveraged all this money from the federal government, and they expanded Medicaid to illegal immigrants the next year. So you could think they did it with, the money is fungible, so they really did it with all federal funds that came in for this expansion. There are significant problems with a crowd out in services. So we know in Medicaid expansion states, those states have taken resources away from children and away from people with disabilities. And if you're crowding, and there's been a surge in emergency room use for non-emergent needs. Mm-hmm. So that is all going to have negative adverse effects on the core Medicaid population.
Wow, well, thank you. Now, as noted, the federal match rate for Medicaid is up to 7 times higher for able-bodied adults than for the most vulnerable. If Congress fails to address this in the One Big Beautiful Bill, do you expect that non-expansion states, like my state in Georgia, to eventually cave to the financial incentive? And does the CBO account for that possibility in its analysis when it talks about it?
So in part, it depends on whether the changes that the Senate is making are going to hold. They would lower the provider tax, ability of states to use provider taxes just in expansion states. That would serve as a disincentive for current non-expansion states to expand. But I do think there is a risk that non-expansion states, and I think non-expansion states made the right decision to maintain the program's focus on the most vulnerable, that they'll expand after the bill's passed.
And how much more do you think that would cost?
If all the non-expansion states expand, probably upwards of $300 billion over a decade.
Over a decade, wow. Thank you. So, Mr. Staley, you spoke about a 10-year wait for in-home care for your son, or maybe it was 11. What other barriers do states impose that prevent the most vulnerable Medicaid recipients from accessing timely care?
Quick response, Mr. Staley, please.
Oh, and my time is
That's okay.
expired, but please
Go ahead and
respond.
give the response, and I'll go to Ms. Jaipal.
So, sure. So ultimately, the biggest way that you see impediments to enrollment for these waivers is that it's just the waiting list. I mean, that is the main thing. But also, and I said this in my testimony, but I would just remind everyone that every dollar that isn't spent on the truly needy is a dollar that can't that goes to able-bodied adults is a dollar that can't go to the truly needy.
Thank you very much.